Seconds. Seconds.
Good morning, Geauga County, Lake County, northeastern Ohio. You're listening to the Voice of Geauga, where every morning, Monday through Friday, from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., you're going to be entertained, informed, and enlightened. Today, particularly, is back, and
Good morning, everybody.
hopefully his mother is okay.
She is she's resting hopefully comfortably in the hospital. Thanks for bringing it up. She had a very, very bad fall.
So we'll ask for prayers for her.
Thank you.
Falls are like the number one problem with Rumble, and to our streaming folks out there, I think I've narrowed down my problem. We're going to have the program's going to be maybe a little bit rough this morning. You should be able to hear us fine. The video is probably going to be a little bit staggery. But the good news is I think of an illustrious software that they create when they do updates. They sometimes give them as bad updates. And I think that's what happened. And I should be running a product called Linux, which I use from time to time because it doesn't have those kind of issues. But with that said, we're going to have a program today, and Jonathan introduced the idea, so I'm going to let him kind of talk about it or open up the discussion. But we've got a lot to talk about. I attended the opening, we're not the opening, that you were there, and you were glad handing one another and patting each other on the back and saying what great elected officials you are, spending other people's money. And so a great new courthouse, which is going to be the bridge from the past to the future. And it'd be interesting to look into what the cost on that bridge to the future is, and what, not only that, but the permanent long-term impact. I may be
Maybe they're going to arrest everybody.
That I'm taking a little bit of liberty, paraphrasing a little bit, but our commissioner divorced the 1990s courthouse, and which I personally think is goofy looking, but they made a big deal about the question. And so it's all built, and the building is beautiful. They did a nice job with making the look the same in terms of the stone and the brick and all that kind of stuff. I'll give them kudos on that. But at the end of the day, from my perspective, it kind of destroys the look of the old 1890s quaint courthouse that we had there. And we still have an old 1890s courthouse on the and what that cost, and then what the long-term impact of the city of Chardon was, because the city of Chardon had an opportunity to really, for all of you living in Chardon, I know that everybody wants to give government downtown. It's like a guaranteed source of income, but Chardon had an opportunity to become a real city, and with along businesses downtown, updating the all of the old 1800s building structure that we've got downtown. Now the taxpayers are going to have to float the boat to upgrade all those buildings. And we could have businesses downtown that were more than 8 to 4 or 8 to 5. They could have been a lot of a vital downtown area. And so it'll be interesting to see how things develop and how things, there's people of differing opinions on this. But I didn't see too many citizens there. I saw a lot of judges, the police, the county commissioners, the city leaders, everybody's in the political class who loves to spend taxpayer dollars. They were all there, and they were just congratulating each other on what a great job they did. And it was just a heartfelt moment, and I'm sure the papers are going to come out with how great everybody was. The commissioners are great. It just puts tears in my eyes. But with that said, I didn't want. That's a tangent. I apologize, Jonathan. I am going to flip it over to you to introduce our concept and get things started.
All right. So our topic for the day is going to be broken brains. But before I switch over to that, I'm going to add a comment to the whole courthouse versus buildings. And that is expect people to ride up on horseback and like start launching fireballs to try and fill the castle 15-foot security wall, whatever it is. Then you're right. I guess the building, it is designed to match the original thing. The original building is now like 6 times larger. It maxed out the footprint and all that. But the other thing that occurs to me, you're talking about the difference between having, some 8 to 4 kind of business, or 8 to 4 kind of entity there, versus having some businesses that could be open all kinds of different hours and entertain people and a very different vibe. A few days ago, when it came up, I was mentioning the different intentions of people. When people go into a square and they're relaxed and they want to go for a meal and have coffee and that maybe do some shopping, it's a very different audience than the people who are going there in legal battles, paying big money, they're big high profile, they're defending themselves in their court cases, and they're just typically angry and upset. It's a different audience. But the last thing I want to say on that, just because it occurs to me, is that's a government office, and government offices observe all holidays, which means that if there's a holiday somewhere, you can imagine that that courthouse is probably going to be closed. So there are going to be big chunks of time where, your local coffee shop or restaurant or whatever might be open, but the courthouse will be closed in observance of pretty much everything. Anyway, that's not our topic. We're talking about broken brains today. A few things have happened recently. It's as political season heats up and people send ridiculous, outlandish emails chock full of just complete and utter lies and nonsense that blows smoke and try to confuse the uninformed and their assumed uneducated audiences. We have another postcard that's been sent in using some out of county dark money pools. From our research, what we're finding, now Wadsworth is in Medina County. So we're going to be working on putting together and connecting these dots in a meaningful way. But this Wadsworth, Ohio based group, it appears that they have a lawyer based in Mount Union, Ohio, that they're hiding behind. So they pool a bunch of money to try and go after people politically in Wadsworth. They have a lawyer in Mount Union who protects their identity so they can hide behind the lawyer. They're paying a Cleveland printer, and it appears that they may have a treasurer who is acting on their behalf in Lake County. And these postcards are getting mailed into Geauga County to attack the good guys in Geauga County. Anybody standing up to big government and the constant overspending, increasing taxes, anybody who is willing to go and put their neck out there to try and ask questions, to try and challenge things. You've heard Skip do it many times with this regionalism effort and that climate change agenda. Well, Skip has been a target of these postcards. I have been a target of these postcards. Steve Olowich, candidate for commissioner in Geauga County, he has been a target of these postcards. And indirectly, sitting current county commissioner Ralph Spitaleri, he was included and referenced in one of the early attacks on Steve Olowich. Well, all of this comes together and falls under that question of who bothers anymore to care what the truth is? We have a lot of people, many people, who seem to be emotionally triggered. And name calling has been huge for a long time. We've talked about it before. And name calling, we know, is used to try and get you to tune somebody out. It's happening now. We see it, periodic posts, not very many, but a couple on social media calling the Voice of Geauga newspaper names. They call it so, oh, it's not worthy of trash can liners, that say these vague name calling sorts of things. And I keep answering, what about the paper? Are you finding anything in the paper that's not true? Because that's the sole purpose, that's the intention of a paper. Find the truth and report on it. I wish local papers held that more to heart. We're coming up on a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about more about where we're seeing mistruth, lies, and disinformation. Remember, you can join the conversation at 440-946-9468. Join us on social media as well, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. More on the other side of the break.
He wear no shoe shine, he got
Mics are off. Mics are off.
All right. Yeah, we have a nice comment from Gardens of CH. Thank you for having Senator Rogner on program yesterday. She seems to be a retail politician. Hey, Gardens of CH, what do you mean by that? She made no clear stand on property tax issue. Any rep who wants votes should allow us to vote on initiative. Jay Edwards is better candidate for treasurer of Ohio. That's Gardens of CH commenting. So, tell us more about what you mean by a retail politician. Forgive me, not really familiar with that term in that context. I know about the name calling from the Levy supporters here in Wycliffe. I've only shared facts, not misinformation. I'm glad you said that, Nana Sherrill, because the Ohio Department of Education is a great example. I'm going to bring it back up. I'm going to bring it up again when we come back from break. I have been posting for a long time, for years, the data that's found about school districts. And it's pretty much invariable. If I go into any group on any social media platform and simply take data, take information about what's happening in a school district and post it, I am guaranteed to get somewhere
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
somewhere between 1 and 1,000 people who flip out. They call me anti-education, anti-student, all kinds of names for posting the information that's readily available on the government.
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent. Today we're talking about broken brains, and I'm talking about the interest. There has to be an interest on the part of the public, we the people, in caring what the truth is. They have to be able to try to cut through the fog and ask questions. So somebody's called a name. If you're called, and the most prevalent forever has been racist. If you're, and the craziest thing, it still boggles my mind. I've talked about it a few times recently. The first time I saw a black conservative called white supremacist. That's just absolute mind-boggling nonsense to me. It's a position that if you disagree with somebody, the skin color shouldn't matter. If it's a topic somebody's bringing up, like I think the school districts should pay less, or I think that the taxes should be lower. Calling somebody a name at that point is just simply blowing smoke and defraying and subtracting from meaningful conversation. So these postcards are attempting to do that, and there was a great comment made by Nana Sherrill in the Rumble chat. I brought it up during the break. I'm going to bring it back up again. Having to do with getting called names if you talk about levies and school district levies. So I'm going to expand on that and use as a frame of reference the posting that I've been doing for years on information about Ohio's school districts. In case you don't know this, pretty much anything you might want to look up about any district anywhere, and that actually includes to drilling down to a specific building or grade level or area of study, like English or mathematics or whatever. You can pull all kinds of data about Ohio's school districts, and that includes financial data as well. How much are they spending and on what categories? Well, this craziest thing, it's still to me mystifying. I can take data from Ohio Department of Education and post it online. I can actually take a screen capture of the Ohio Department of Education website and show people, here's what your district is spending. And Wycliffe Schools happens to be a recent prevalent example. I've been posting a lot about Wycliffe Schools in Lake County. People go off the deep end. They go ballistic, calling me anti-education and anti-student. I've posted on some school districts. It's my understanding that Richmond Heights is primarily black school district, and if I post there, I'm called racist. If I post, literally, I can post the things from Ohio Department of Education and be called racist because I'm posting in a school district that's primarily a black school district. It's insanity. So we have to be willing to try to find the facts. And these things, I'm hoping you help spread the word that these postcards that are showing up. I'm not sure if I mentioned the organization. This dark money pool. Again, just paraphrasing to bring everybody back up to speed in case you're just tuning in and may have missed it. There is a group called Ohioans for Responsible Government, which is a complete misnomer and ridiculous in and of itself, because they are attacking the only people who are working toward and advocating and asking questions and wanting responsible government. So this Ohioans for Responsible Government, from what we're piecing together, is a group of people in Wadsworth, Ohio, who have used a lawyer in Mount Union, Ohio, to hide behind and are pumping big money into mailing these glossy full color postcards through a Cleveland printer using a Willoughby P.O. box into Geauga County to attack good guys here.
Hey,
This
Jonathan,
is,
I want to make a correction here, if you don't mind. Sorry for stepping on you. This is
please,
not
no, absolutely.
this is not a group out of Wadsworth. This is a group out of Geauga County who is using an attorney out of Wadsworth. So they're running cover. They're cowards. You know, say what you will about the Voice of Geauga news, but we broadcast that on this radio. Names are, anybody can look up the name on the Secretary of State's website, who owns the company. So this is not a secret. I run into 90% of the people I talk to like the paper, by the way. There's a very, very small vocal percentage that don't like the paper. But with that said, this group are cowards. They're cowards and they have no ethics and no morality whatsoever. We will get to the bottom of who's behind this, but it's Geauga County people. There's nobody else that cares about our Central Committee. But I want to make
That's theory at this point, Skip.
That's not theory. That's not theory. But
the only tangible proof. So this is interesting. We're having this discussion live on air.
Yeah.
The only tangible proof we have is the paperwork and filings and Wadsworth, Ohio, and the Mount Union lawyer. The Mount Union lawyer. For anybody that's able to connect the dots here, this is part and parcel of a common political playbook. And the lawyer comes up in many different contexts. I don't believe actually personally that the lawyer is involved in any way. It's it's a common practice. I mean, setting up that type of business entity to use a lawyer to act as
he's just a paid agent. He's just a paid agent.
A paid agent just to do the filings and stuff. That's very common. So that does, and we'll I do believe that there's very great likelihood that there's some collaboration with some local Geauga County folks.
I'll put some money. I'll put money in an escrow account on that right now, and then we can
get a bet. Nice.
And if we can find somebody that will find out, do the search, I'll put a pool of money together, and whoever finds out who the group of people is that's actually paying for this, that prize will go to them. So, but I did want to make a point too, because you hit on something that's very interesting. So we do this radio program. We're not hiding anything. We express our opinions and viewpoints. Sometimes people disagree with us, which is okay. I have a lot of friends who I disagree with, and we get into interesting. You and I from time to time disagree. Believe it or not, the people who are listening, Jonathan and I actually don't agree 100% on everything, but we have invited on those people who disagree with us. And I will say, I've gone to county commissioner meetings and I've talked about NOACA and I've offered to share facts. I have the complete history. It's all documented. It was provided to me by NOACA, and I offered that to the county commissioners, Kellen Brakey in particular. And she slapped my hand back and said, "I'm not interested." When Jim DeVore.
So she wants to. I'm sorry to interrupt, but So this is new to me. I didn't know you'd had that conversation. So she basically wants to sign us up for giving up our local control, local government, and just hand over the reins of government to Cleveland-based unelected bureaucrats, a big board that already has been abusing Geauga County for many years. So she wants to hand that over. You're going in there and saying, look, here's a big stack of info about the people you're looking to climb in bed with. And she said, no, I don't want to read
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
I don't
She
want to
said,
know.
I'm not interested." That was that's in a public meeting in the meeting minutes. In addition to that, if you recall, and you
Good
were
grief.
there, I think, when people were speaking out against NOACA, and her comment was, "These are well-meaning people." And there was multiple times when I had made a comment okay, Carolyn, maybe you're right, maybe I'm right. Let's have a conversation about it. But instead of wanting to have a fruitful, honest, open debate and discussion, she didn't ask me why I was thinking that. She said, "No, you're wrong," without any interest in getting to the facts. That's the problem we've got. We've got individuals who are
Yep.
operating in this um,
Broken brain.
mindset, and I'm always open minded. If somebody can prove me I'm wrong, okay, call me. We can call us on the radio program today, 440-946-9468. I would love to have a conversation with you about NOACA because I know quite a bit about it. But the problem is
That's your hot button
the
topic.
problem is there's a number of things I know a lot about. Agenda 21. I know something about regionalism. I know a lot about the property tax initiative. I've done a lot of homework on property tax and alternate ways to pay for the taxes to get the needed services without using property tax. And it is doable, and it's not going to hurt us. But
Yep.
nobody wants that conversation. I brought that up in the League of Women Voters, the very first forum they had. Let's have a fruitful, honest, open debate discussion about this topic. No, there are those who want their way. They don't care
Yeah.
whether
Well,
they lie, cheat, or whatever in order to get it.
candidly, I mean, you say nobody wants that information. That's not true. Nobody on the side of the people. What was it? Jack Windsor made a post. It basically just said the people trying to convince you not to abolish property taxes are the people getting paid off of property taxes. Those are the people that don't want the information. But 99%, a statistical 100% of Ohio wants the information you're talking about. If you're talking about the way to abolish property taxes, which looms like a hovering axe over our heads. And there's another post from a few days ago from a woman. She's widowed, husband was military, has this home, but she's now faces losing her home. It's another one faces losing her home over property taxes. She's been helping community for decades. She's lived. She and her husband bought this home 40 years ago. It's paid off. She owns it, but property taxes are so high that they threaten surpassing her ability to pay on a fixed income, and that's common now. So so you bring up a good point. The wild thing about Carolyn Brakey and trying to hand her information about NOACA and her denying it. So that brings me back to I'll tell you the idea for this show came from a post, and this is a breadcrumb for our listening audience on Facebook, on Voice of Geauga on Facebook. I posted a link to an article, another spectacular article from Michael Smith called Perfumed Nonsense from the Balcony Class. That's a great article, and we're coming up on a break, but I'm going to lead us in with just one key paragraph from this. It's a key element. But first of all, we need to have people, especially people in office who are serving the public, interested in finding the truth. We're going to come back with more on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
All right. Well, so it looks like the video is frozen, or it's not completely frozen. It's a little bit glitchy, but the audio is still rolling. Yeah. So Nana Sherrill says she calls it gaslighting, and Nana Sherrill, I wouldn't go so far as to call the lawyer involved in this a shill. That is actually a common practice. A lot of people who set up many different types of companies, sole proprietorship or LLC or different types of corporate structures. It can be complicated to navigate, and small businesses in particular, uh, they may not want to deal with all the paperwork and filing requirements. So often they pay lawyers and law firms to do the filing and maintain the filing requirements. So that's not unusual. And in this circumstance, I did originally look at the lawyer. The sense that I get from everybody I've talked to is that the lawyer's okay in this and might even be a good person here, and probably has 100 different companies that are using his law firm for that for that purpose. It's just a guess, but it is, in other words, a common practice to use a law firm for that kind of filing. People can't handle the truth when it hits them in the face. Yep, that's true. That's a good one, Dan and Cheryl. That is true. Let me bring this current. So, Skip and our listening audience, I'll mention it for both. You've commented before, Skip, that there can be a significant lag in what you're seeing if you're watching the Rumble feed. There is that scroll bar at the bottom. I've noticed that Rumble tends to broadcast, in my view, about 45 seconds behind. But you can bring it, you can sort of drag that little timeline scroll bar at the bottom and bring it closer to current. I'm right now at -2 seconds rather than 45-second delay. I'm not sure why that happens on Rumble, but I'm not sure that it matters to our listening audience, but it's something that I happen to picked up on.
Yeah, Rumble does that delay intentionally. I read one time why they do that. It's about a minute delay, and OBS adds a little bit of a, or not OBS, but Restream adds a little bit of a delay also. And so Facebook and YouTube seem to be the best in terms of keeping up, but Rumble has a strategy behind that. I'm not sure. I think it's because they want to make the video, smooth it out, capture
30 seconds.
frames, and do some
Yeah.
other things. So yeah, I'm today's going to be a little staticky video wise. The sound should be fine. I think I've discovered the problem. I've got to update my network drivers on my PC, and then I should be okay. It's dropping some frames today because the upload speed, which is what
10
OBS
seconds, 10 seconds.
is dependent on, is slow.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga with Skip Claypool and myself, Jonathan Broadbent. Today we're talking about broken brains. And we've sort of jumped around a little bit. There's a lot to cover in this. And
Does that connected to stinking thinking, broken brain, stinking thinking?
It is. I mean, well, there are two pieces to that occur to me. One is there are some people with really bad ideas, especially in politics. And especially if you can get yourself in a position where you can make lots of money doing very little work and pretend like it's free money, is that's what a lot of politicians do. They don't, they don't, they willfully don't connect the dots between their huge, lavish lifestyle and then trying to think of themselves as some sort of royalty. Um, and the homelessness and the people struggling to pay bills and put food on the table. What they're willfully allowing themselves to ignore is that their lavish lifestyle is on the backs of we the taxpayers. And so it takes people like you and me and people in the Rumble chat and others to keep asking the questions and keep showing up to those meetings. So yeah, you mentioned the fact that a lot of people showed up to push back at a local county commissioners meeting. And, I'm one, I keep using that example of the $400,000 office renovation for a county official. And I got, in particular, from Carolyn Brakey, I got the roll of the eyes and like, what? That's pennies, the message that I feel I was getting was like, why would we stop and bother and delay our rapid meeting of rubber stamping it's huge money for such a small sum. Why would we bother even talking about $400,000? That was the message that I got clearly from, like, if you get in the habit of spending all day, whatever, a couple of hours every Tuesday morning, rubber stamping 1.6 million, 3 million, 5 million, 12 million, whatever. And then somebody comes along and says, why are you spending 400,000? Like, what? Why wouldn't we? That's broken brains. So that's the broken brain piece, Skip. But the stinking thinking, or that's the stinking thinking when it comes to people's willingness to pursue the truth. Normally, we would rely on local papers, and the paper should be delving into it. What is the true cost of the thing? And what is the burden on the taxpayer? And expose it. That's truth. If you get papers or social media or politicians who blow smoke, and I'm going to use ADP as another example. Once again, going back to ADP, we've learned that employees at ADP, which is Geauga County's tech department, basically, it's our IT department. It has a huge staff and a huge budget, a lot of people, and they're getting paid big money, and many or all of them get overtime, which is mystifying. Even the salaried employees, apparently, they those people represent. Sorry, there's a message coming up here at the same time. I had to snooze that. Distracted me. We have. Sorry. You know what? I'm going to switch and go back to something because somebody just alerted me to the fact that I didn't follow through on a comment I began to make earlier. I'm going to come back to ADP in a minute, but two things at once. One is I want to recognize our sponsors of today's program. That is the Chardon VFW, Middlefield VFW, the Chardon American Legion, and the American Legion in Newberry, and Red EFT, the Arborist. Those are great sponsors. Make sure to stop in those spots and patronize. In particular, if you stop in a VFW, buy a beer for a vet and pat him on the back. Say thank you for your service. Going back and finishing my train of thought that I started before the break on the article from Michael Smith. That is, again, perfumed nonsense from the balcony class. And as promised, I'm going to read just one paragraph from this. This is the breadcrumb that I told you about. Go there, find this article, and comment on this. This is what started it for me. I love these articles from Michael Smith. You should follow him. But here's what he says. What we are watching, particularly among today's progressive leadership class, is not simply a set of bad ideas. It is the institutionalization of ideas that were never stress tested in the first place. These beliefs are born in environments that have been insulated from consequence for so long that consequence itself begins to feel theoretical. When your neighborhood is secure, your children are in private schools, and your daily life is buffered by wealth and status, you can afford to entertain ideas that would collapse instantly under pressure. The problem arises when those same ideas are exported through policy, regulation, and cultural pressure onto people who do not have that insulation. So we're looking at some people that have these theoretical notions. If only they get that next big lump of money and spend the next $1 billion, they're going to solve the social ills and their division of government. If only they can expand just a little bit more and hire a few more people and get more staff and an assistant and another couple $1 million or billion or whatever it is, they're about to solve the big problem. Well, we've had decades and lifetimes of that, and all we get is government bloat and overtaxation. That gets into broken brains and stinking thinking. And one last piece, and then I want to flip it back to Skip, because I don't want to monopolize this whole conversation. But there's a thought that occurs to me stemming from a lot of experience that I've had in working with lawyers and law firms, and it's manyfold. But in particular, I spent 5 years very involved with the City Club of Cleveland. I was on the board for a year. I served as chair of what's called the New Leaders. That's a young professional group. And we brought in a lot of speakers. It was pretty cool. I got to ring the bell and announce speakers, etc. A lot of lawyers and law firms are very involved in the City Club of Cleveland. So I got to know many of them. Plus, on top of that, a little bit of family history. My grandfather was one of the founding partners of McDonald Hopkins, downtown Cleveland, a law firm. And it used to be that lawyers prided themselves on logic and reason, critical thinking, and they would be able to argue both sides of a topic and do it well and be very well versed. And there was a lot of pride in the legal community around deep critical thinking and Socratic method, those kinds of things. We seem to have switched, and I see it prevalent. I think it's been a shift in some legal colleges that they're teaching a generation of kids, of law students, win at all costs and truth doesn't matter. It has become rampant within many bar associations and lawyers. They just don't care. Don't, like, literally in many aspects of life, or maybe all aspects, they don't care what the truth is. It is simply keep lying until you win. And I guess that can be a legal strategy in a court of law. But if you conduct yourself that way, especially if you've gone to one of those bad law schools and your brain has been broken in that way, and then you achieve political office, and all you do is just simply spew out lie after lie after lie, that is a very harmful, very disruptive and damaging.
I could hear you the whole time. It's kind of goofy. So I could hear you the whole time. It's kind of goofy. So, in any case, yeah, there's so much we could say. We could do multiple sessions of this particular topic because it's a very complicated discussion about why people make the dumb decisions that they make. And in some cases, they think they're doing, they make a decision. And I'll use one example. I'll use myself as the example. Years ago, when I was a county commissioner, Tim Lynn and Ralph Spitaleri and I were faced with an upcoming levy for the library. And I did the analysis on it. I'm pretty good at doing that. So I brought that to Ralph and to Tim and said, hey, look, this is a huge levy. And it's not needed. Here's the budget for the library. It's not needed. They can accomplish everything they want to accomplish without this levy. We shouldn't be approving it. But our attorney said we didn't have the option under Ohio law. We had to approve it by law or we could be sued. Ralph Spitaleri, to his credit, said, let him sue us. Screw it. Let's vote no. And the attorneys convinced Tim and I to vote yes. And so it was a lot of angst. I was on the fence. Ultimately, and I see us coming on a break, so I'm going to come back to this on the other side of the break. But I'll finish the story on the other side of the break.
Yeah, well, that's a teaser for you. We're leaving with a cliffhanger as we head into break. Remember, you can join this conversation by joining us on Rumble, YouTube, or Facebook. And dial in 440-946-9468. I began to bring up ADP, and I want to put in context. I've said it before, I'm going to keep saying it. This is not a disparagement of an entire group of people. There are some great people who work for ADP. There are some potential cost overruns. More on the other side of the break.
Mics are off. Mics are off.
Okay, the good news is I think I might have solved the problem with the staticky video. So let's watch it going forward. That's the reason for the glitch that we had. I was updating the drivers. I was
wow.
dual purpose.
That was a daring move.
It was because I could have been easily. But I'm watching the statistics now on the bottom of my OBS screen, and I was getting about 24% drop frames. I'm getting 0 drop frames now.
Oh.
And so I think that our video should be smoothed out now. It looks.
What do you say? Let's turn to our audience here on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube. What do you think? Is the video I know was Kind of staticky and a little glitchy earlier. Is it looking better now? So give us your comments. Are we looking better on the video side on the podcast?
So I made some other adjustments to compensate for the fact that we had very low uh, upload speed. So I just made another adjustment to hopefully smooth out and make the video work a little better. And
Cool.
I'm actually watching the video on my Rumble, and it's actually moving now. So I think I solved the problem, and it took a lot of work and effort to do
30
that because
seconds, 30
oh
seconds.
no, I got 2%, 7.7%. I'm getting a little bit of drop frame still, but
Oh,
not too many.
okay. So, yeah, great comment. It's a beautiful time to be alive. Gardens of CH says it is a wonderful time. We should use the momentum
10
to elect.
seconds, 10 seconds.
Welcome back to Voice of Geauga. With Skip Claypool, myself, Jonathan Broadbent. Remember, you can join the conversation by dialing in 440-946-9468. I'm going to flip it back to Skip so he can finish telling us the story. He left us with a cliffhanger, but I am also going to interject that we've got a great chat here. Donald Trump we've got a Donald Trump profile. It is a beautiful time to be alive. I couldn't possibly agree more. Please do get out there. The midterms coming up and vote for the good guys. Vote for the real conservatives. Let's get rid of the people that don't belong in the Republican Party and fortify. Let's cement the conservative values and positions within the Republican Party and fight back against the far left. Skip, before we went to break, you were telling us about the time when you were on serving as county commissioner and you had the levy.
Yes, and so I mean, commissioners, everybody makes mistakes from time to time, and so we were faced, and we had a very emotional executive session in which Tim Lennon, Ralph Spitalian, and I were discussing with our attorneys what our options were, and we all wanted to vote no, but the attorneys kept telling us that we couldn't because it was going to violate the law, and then the library would immediately run to the court and they'd sue us, and then we'd have all these court costs and blah blah blah, and so I was torn because I really wanted to vote no, but I didn't. I voted yes to allow the levy to move forward, thinking we could convince people to vote no in the election process. That was my thought process. Well, I regret to this day not siding with Ralph because he voted no. Tim and I voted yes. It passed. The library went on and they succeeded at convincing people because generally speaking, they're pretty good at spending tax dollars to promote their agenda of the levy and so forth. I mean, they had a nonprofit corporation set up to do that. But that said, it passed, and there was a huge levy passed, and the result of that was they got more money than they know what to do with, and so they're building these Taj Mahal libraries. They're building a new headquarters now, and they waste a ton of money, and so it was a regret that I will live with for a long time. And so there were a lot of decisions that were made through the times that I've served in public office, and some decisions are good, some decisions are bad. Not all of it is intentional. And so I will point to another situation where the health department was recently, the sovereignty of that health department was given to Lake County. And I know that if Carolyn Brakey were here, she's going to say, no, that's not true. The board controls the health department, and it's really just being run by Lake County. No, the reality is boards have very little impact on the day-to-day operation. All of the day-to-day operation is being guided by the procedures, policies, and oversight of whatever county or whatever director there is. And I sit on multiple boards and can say that pretty confidently. And so our health department is run by Lake County. And there is impact to that. And our sovereignty was impacted by that particular decision. And I can prove, because if anybody goes to skipclaypool.com, there's a video on there of that meeting in which they did that. And there was a claim that we're going to save $500,000. That's not accurate. We're not saving $500,000. And I can prove that. But nobody wants to have that conversation. Carolyn does not want because people want things to go a particular way and they don't care about the truth. And elected officials do this all the time. the decision to build the courthouse downtown Chardon was a battle. If anybody wants to go back, the whole thing. And I know today they're going to say, oh, it was a great decision. Well, time will tell. I'm not convinced. Any improvement over what happened at the courthouse downtown is going to be great. I mean, people are going to love the new digs, which were millions and millions of dollars in there. And so anything that improves their lives is good, they're going to feel good about. But the reality is, was that the best decision for the long term for Chardon and for Geauga County? I'm not convinced it was the best idea. And one most prominent reason I can say that is look at parking in downtown Chardon. If you got a brand new courthouse, you get all this activity in downtown Chardon, you already can't find places to park in downtown Chardon, and this is just going to make it compound that issue and make it worse. And so that's just one of the most outstanding. Plus, there's all kinds of reasons if you had a main campus kind of a scenario to leverage building cost and the new technology and all that kind of stuff that could go into it. But there's a lot that I don't know, and I know that big, beautiful, very expensive building that we built downtown is going to be much, much better for the judges and the staff and all that kind of stuff.
I'm sure they're gonna
and
like.
and it should be. I mean, with all the money we spent down there, it should be leagues better. But now we're left with all these old buildings, which we wouldn't have had, if we built a new campus over on 35 acres or someplace else, then we wouldn't have had the albatross hung around our neck. Where now we've got all these old buildings for the probate court and the auditor and the prosecutor. We're putting $400,000 to modernize the prosecutor's office. We wouldn't have had that had we moved. And that's because they're spending other people's money. It's not money out of their pockets. What do they care? And they pounded themselves on the back yesterday and said what great job they did spending other people's money. That's part of the angst that I have as a citizen whose tax dollars are being spent on some of these, what I think are bad decisions. And I'm just only one opinion. If somebody disagrees with me, come on this program and discuss it. But no, they're too afraid to do that, or they don't want to risk doing that, and so they won't come on the program. They won't have
your
debate and
Skip,
discussion.
your poll was very successful on Facebook. You posted a poll on the Voice of Geauga on Facebook. You had a lot of comments, both positive, people that like the new courthouse and the look of it, and some negative. So that it's an interesting conversation and very engaging. But I'm reminded somehow of a story I heard about years ago, and this to me is indicative. It's an example of just stinking thinking and just broken brains. There are people years ago, rather than putting money into, and I'm going to use Cleveland Hopkins Airport as an example, some major airline hubs. At the time, we had Continental was a hub and a couple of others. And instead of putting money into the experience of the airport and streamlining some things, they rebuilt and they have a little people mover walkway in between them. Well, they built these things at huge cost. And it turns out that one of the first things they discovered when they cut the ribbon on the thing and all the vans drove up is there are these shuttle vans that move people back and forth between those off-site parking lots, and they were too tall to fit inside the building. So they were smashing the tops of the concrete because somebody didn't plan for that. So they back to the drawing board, another hundreds of millions of dollars spent fixing that issue. And it seems like there's this constant cycle of not thinking clearly about best use of funds. And then in the circumstance of county government and local government, it's we, the people, who are left holding the bill. And if you have to go back and there are cost overruns or they need to redo something, you know, a lot of people in politics who just sort of shrug, like, oh, whoopsies. And they just keep rubber stamping money. It's more and more people just dropping off and ending up struggling to pay bills and stay in their homes and be able to afford food. We're coming up on the conclusion of this show. I hope you enjoyed this segment, this show rather, we're calling Broken Brains. We don't forget to spread the word. Get friends out there informed and point them toward Voice of Geauga, the paper, the podcast, and the radio show. On behalf of Voice of Geauga, Thanks everybody for tuning in.